We are here to discuss procrastination and how it is that you get into this situation with yourself, procrastinating. It's super common, so we'll look at that, and we'll talk about why it is an effect on your body and how that shows up in you, why it's a problem. We'll talk about the source, some of the sources of procrastination, the real reasons you might be procrastinating. It might not be what you think. And then we'll look at some basic solutions, at least a starting place for how to start releasing yourself of the pattern of procrastination. So thank you for those who are here with me live. I'm Robin Smith. I'm a trauma certified and body-centered relationship coach, and I run this group, the Healthy Relationship Sisterhood. And I wanted to bring procrastination forward, such a kind of a tongue twister, procrastination forward, because it's something that I address often with my clients. So raise your hand or make a comment here if you procrastinate, if you know it's an issue for you. Because if it is, you're so not alone. Obviously, it's all of us here probably have experienced procrastination, and I think most people I know deal with it on some level. But what I find that most people think about when they're procrastinating is they judge themselves for being lazy or not disciplined enough. So yeah, nice to see you. Leave a comment if one of those is kind of your assumption that, is how you need to shift if you are procrastinating. Do you think you're too lazy? Do you think you're not disciplined enough? What is it for you? Or if it's something else, please leave that in a comment, because we can learn from each other here, and I will be checking the comments and responding to you. And of course, if you have any feedback for me, like the sound's not working or something, let me know that too. So what I've noticed with procrastination in myself is that when I'm doing it, it doesn't feel good, right? It feels like an energy suck. Like I contract, I get tense, and I get tight, and I waste a lot of mental energy on the thing that I think I should be doing, right? And it's a huge contrast. I was just talking with someone about this today. A huge contrast between that and when you do the thing that you've been putting off, right? You know, that feeling of like, I did it, and you get a release of energy, right? And you get a feeling of triumph, and you get to feel light and empowered. So it's so interesting that all that could be possible. All that could be yours, right? If you complete your task that you're supposed to be doing, according to you. But often you don't, right? You don't complete it, and you feel horrible, and you give yourself a hard time. I'm not, I'm a failure. I'm not successful enough. I'm not doing it right, and so we can be so hard on ourselves and create, kind of compound the problem of procrastination by then making ourselves feel bad. So leave a comment if that's definitely a familiar experience for you. And I'm sure you are not alone. So I want to talk about here some of the real reasons you might be procrastinating that I think is a lot more complex and deeper than just the kind of superficial, like you should be more disciplined and, here's what you have to do and set up a calendar and yada yada. Like, obviously some of that can be helpful, and sometimes that is simply the issue is you're not organized enough. But I do find that with a lot of people, it does run deeper. And through my training in developmental trauma, I've learned so much about, my own issues and how to help my clients that it has shown a lot of light on issues like this. So I want to share that with you here. And then, like I said, we'll look at maybe some solutions for you. But so if you are procrastinating about something, if you've got this thing and you keep saying, I should do that, and you're not doing it, and you feel all this resistance and kind of a push-pull with yourself around it, chances are, drum roll, it might be obvious, but you don't want to do it. You don't really want to. And so the conflict can be between the part that thinks you should do it and the part that doesn't want to do it. make a note to me in the comments if that makes sense. And again, when you leave a comment, we learn from each other, so it helps everybody when you share your experience. And of course, if you're watching this later, still leave a comment, because I will come back and you can leave your questions, and I will respond with feedback or answering any questions that I see. That was one thing, right? You might have all this resistance because you, one, don't want to do the thing, and two, because it may mean something bigger for you, and we're going to look at that in a moment. But let's talk about this piece of, like, you don't really want to do it, but you think you should do it. So I'm going to use an example of, like, a pretty high level example that's actually quite common, of you think you should be successful in a certain way. You think you should be a professional, a doctor, or a lawyer, or something maybe you were told you should be in the world, right? And so then you find yourself, like, putting off registering for college, or putting off writing your dissertation, right? Because on a deep level, you don't really want to do it. And maybe so on the flip side, what you really want is, to be an artist, or, to be a dancer, or to go take people on tropical retreats or something like that. So you can see that there would be a conflict there, and there would be a lot of reason to have resistance to doing something that even maybe you signed yourself up to do, like you entered college, right? And you're still, like, avoiding writing the paper, or avoiding studying. So that's one example. I'll talk about some others maybe later. But what can happen is, if you set yourself up in this way, there's pressure, right? You put pressure on yourself to accomplish or succeed in a certain way, and you may take on more responsibility, or more tasks, or more of something that you think you should do that you don't actually want to do. And then you feel overwhelmed, right? And then there's a feeling of anxiety. So the pressure and then the anxiety comes with that. So sometimes maybe you're not doing the thing because you don't want to do it, but because you're scared of the outcome of doing it, right? You could say you succeed, and you could succeed, but you're afraid that you succeeding leaves someone behind, or you succeeding gets you a lot of judgment, right? So that would be another reason for the resistance to the outcome. Does that make sense? Leave a note for me. Okay, I'm seeing some yeses, some this resonates. Thank you for your responses. So we can have a variety of reasons for why we might not want to do the thing. You may think that the thing you're setting yourself up to do, whether it's studying for an exam, or taking a driver's test, or applying for a new job, or whatever, it might be too challenging. You might think you're not going to make it, right? You're not going to pass, so you're going to fail in your own eyes. So that might be another reason you would procrastinate, and it makes total sense. So thanks for responding, everybody. Yes, yeah, it's helpful to see that, right? That we're kind of all in it together, and we grew up, most of us, in this Western culture that pressures us. We feel a lot of outer pressure from our caregivers, from our teachers, from the society as a whole, to live in the world in a certain way, right? To achieve a certain amount of success financially and, worldly and socially. And some of that may not actually align with who we truly are. But when we don't tune into that, and we tell ourselves we should do it, or something bad will happen, then there's a lot of inner pressure and anxiety around it. And this conflict that can happen, like I was saying, of the two parts of you, one that wants to do it, and one that doesn't, or one that feels like you should do it, and one that's terrified of the outcome. Another possible outcome that is actually quite common for like a reason that you might avoid doing a thing, is that you feel like you might, like I was saying, get judged. But if we take that a little further, it might be that you're afraid of losing the relationship. So you might be afraid of rejection, or some kind of abandonment that can come from doing something that even you think on the outside looks like a good thing to do, like I was saying, complete the exam or get the, get the new job or whatever. But somebody that you care about and want to be in a relationship with may not approve, right? And so it could affect your relationship. And so we call this in the world of psychology like an attachment issue. If you keep doing something because you think you should, out of a fear to protect a relationship, an attachment relationship, and it's likely that that could have started very early in your life. So if you were raised by caregivers who are very controlling of you or narcissistic or invasive in your life, you may have learned by the way they brought you up that you had to behave in a certain way in order to achieve their love and approval. Does that make sense? So you become who you think you should become in order to maintain, like I said, that attachment relationship. You need that attachment relationship, the relationship with your caregivers, those who you completely depend on. You completely need them to take care of you. So you end up forsaking your authenticity, your integrity, your true desires of who and how you want to be in the world in order to maintain the relationship. Hopefully that makes sense. This is like a psychological concept, but it, I think it's pretty relatable, and I think it, hopefully that's making sense to you. And I think a lot of us have experienced something like that. So you forsake or you override your true desires and your true, maybe even heart's calling for how you want to express yourself, because you realize through your experience or through what you're told by your caregivers, and this is all when you're pretty young, that you're going to lose the relationship in some way. And your parent could even withhold their love from you. Some parents they use you as an attachment figure, by the way. And so if your parent kind of needs you in their life, then they could withhold their love from you when you start to become independent. You become a teenager, you want to go out in the world, and all of a sudden, your father's not there for you, your mother's, not hugging you anymore, she's pushing you away energetically or emotionally, and that's terrifying, right? Even though you think you want the independence, what you need more is the attachment. So, and that could happen in early life when you really start getting independent at the age of 2 or 3 also. So when you have immature parents who are relying on you for their emotional needs, that sets you up for a problem like this, where you feel like you need to forsake your authenticity in order to have their love and approval. So make a note if you feel like that's been an issue for you, and give yourself some love for that, because that's really a core wound and very hard thing to experience. So that's what I wanted to say in general, and just trying to keep this really succinct here tonight, but in general about some of the possible causes for why we might be habitually procrastinating. We're all going to procrastinate once in a while. And of course, there's things you don't want to do that you kind of have to do, like, whatever, get your driver's license I was talking to someone about today, or, just the basic paperwork of life and stuff. But sometimes you think you have to do it and you don't. Like, you can hire someone to help you, right? And so there's sometimes ways out of that. But we're talking about when procrastination is a kind of like, it's paralyzing. You find yourself unable to make a decision, unable to move forward. You keep beating yourself up for not solving the issue or taking the step or taking the stand or whatever it is you need to do. And you feel kind of frozen and stuck in your life from it. So hopefully what I'm going to say next will give you some possible, at least, steps towards resolution. So what I'd like you to start considering, like I was saying at the beginning, is if there are some shoulds in your life. I should be doing this. I should want to do that. I should be this kind of person. And because that's where, there should, and as an adult, we want to live a life of really alignment with what we want. We don't want to live a life of have-tos, of pressure, of, of shoulds, really. I love that expression. Are you shitting on yourself, right? It's not a good feeling. It's contraction, like I was saying, when you have shoulds all throughout your life. So start looking at that and start looking at what it would mean to you, like the worst part for you about not doing that thing you think you should do, because that's going to tell you, what in your mind the consequences are. And sometimes we blow those up way bigger than they actually are, right? We think, oh, if I don't do that thing, I'm a horrible person. If I don't do that thing, nobody's going to like me. If I don't do that thing, I'm going to be rejected and judged. And so sometimes, of course, some of that could be true, but often we blow it out of proportion and it's not really true. So I'd like you to start questioning those beliefs that you have about those shoulds in your life and the thing that you're resisting, and what meaning you're adding to the thing. Because when we're doing that, we may be selling out our true self for the hope of someone's approval, right? The hope of someone's friendship. And that's really not a sustainable way to have a relationship if you're sacrificing your authenticity in order to sustain it. So hopefully that makes sense. Yes, it is very interesting. I'm glad you think so, Barbara. I'm just checking my notes here. Yeah, I think I've covered that. So part 2 of looking at resolution for this is like I've spoken to, are you actually doing what you want to do? And sometimes you don't know, right? Because if you were raised in this environment of always kind of bending yourself around in a pretzel to do what you should do because you were told to be that way, you might not really be in touch with what you want for yourself. You might not really know your true desires and your longings and your heart's calling and your purpose in the world. And so that's going to require some deep inquiry for you. So journaling is going to be good, and checking in regularly with, gee, do I want to do that right now? Am I just saying yes to be nice or to be so I don't get rejected? Or is it actually a true yes? And that's what I'd like you to start inquiring about in your day-to-day living with everything. Is this food I want to be eating right now? Is that a place I want to be going? Do I really want to spend time with that friend? Ask yourself these questions so you can start to tune into your truth, your essence of who you are and your desires, because they make you who you are. And if you don't honor them, you're going to have this conflict that I was talking about, these two different parts of you at war, and that creates a lot of contraction and eventually illness when you're like conflicted with yourself all the time. So you may need to do some work in that area of inquiring around your true desires. And the last part I wanted to say, let me see. Oh yes, is to look at whether you are tying up your worthiness with approval. Try that on for a second. So if you believe that for yourself, in order to be loved, in order to be good, in order to be worthy of attention or love or approval, I need to do X, Y, and Z, then you may have those two kind of knotted up around each other, that my behavior or my pleasing somebody is going to give me the love and the attention that I desire. And honestly, we need to learn to separate that. Of course, we want to be good people in the world. Everybody does, and we want people to, we want to have smooth and harmonious relationships, and ideally to serve the people we love the most. But we don't want to, again, sacrifice who we naturally are in order to do that. So you want to come from a place of knowing your worth regardless of what you're accomplishing and doing and who you're pleasing. Hopefully that's making sense. So that we're not, bending over backwards to do something because we think it's going to bring us that connection that we long for. So we want to be able to be our true selves, our natural essence selves, who we naturally are, how we naturally are, and find relationships that meet us in that place instead of twisting ourselves in pretzels to be a certain way so we can have a certain relationship. Hopefully that makes sense. So this piece of worthiness, of really valuing your worth regardless of how, you know, your hair looks or what you've done to your body, or, you know, how much success you've achieved on the planet, separating that out is going to be really important. It's not something I'm going to lay out right now on how to do that, but just to be starting to look at how you're kind of, you know, twisting yourself around or tying those two together that really ideally need to be separated, your worth from what you do. So I'm going to quickly summarize now. We've talked about kind of how procrastination is hard on your body. It's unhealthy. It makes you contracted and tense and spend a lot of energy kind of worrying, and then you pressure yourself to do a lot of things you think you should do, and then you feel anxious, right? So all that's kind of tied into like why procrastination is not a great habit to have. And of course, you probably have experienced that. And then we talked about some of the potential sources for the procrastination pattern of in early childhood. You may have been pressured to be a certain way. You may have felt like you had to be a certain way, or you wouldn't have gotten the love and attention that you deeply needed as a child. And so you've continued to do that. And of course, there's other reasons that I didn't go into here tonight. And then lastly, we talked about, you know, places to look, places to start inquiring about your own beliefs about yourself and what you're making of the thing that you think you should do, and whether you're putting too much pressure on that or blowing it out of proportion is one. And then two, if you're getting in touch with your own desires and needs and your own, you know, personal wants and needs, and allowing them to be okay. And three, your self-worth and how you value yourself, and are you tying that up with approval with others. So let me know if that's helpful for you. I'd love to see any comments or questions. I'm seeing many comments, and thank you for that. And so lastly, you know, like I said at the beginning, I do think this is a rather complex issue. It's not like an outside-in thing, in my opinion, where, you know, like I said at the beginning, we think, oh, I'm too lazy, I should just be more disciplined. Okay, here's how you get disciplined, and you do that. Because that's just the surface of the issue, right? And the deeper stuff is, oh, I'm not really honoring myself, I'm not really listening to myself, I'm not in alignment with myself, and all that's, or I don't value myself. All that is really, I think, the bigger core, and that stuff takes time, and it takes inner inquiry and work, and I think, you know, it can be really helpful to get support with that, because we can't always see how we're doing that from the inside. We need some feedback, some information, some, you know, reflection from the outside to help us with that. So I happen to be in a position of loving my work. I'm so grateful that I have found, you know, I was out of integrity for a little while in the way I was in my work life, and I switched careers, and I'm so loving it. And that shows me that I have energy from the work that I do, that I'm in integrity with myself, right? And so that's a great sign that there is inner alignment, and so I don't procrastinate you know, around my work. I love it. So I bring that forward to you because I love supporting people in around issues like this in their early trauma, and living a life that feels like in alignment and on purpose and in flow, and there's a fullness to your life instead of a resistance to your life. So if you're someone who feels like you could use some support, and you might like to work with me, or at least like to get together and see if it might be a good fit, I have left a link for my online calendar with the video, and you are welcome to schedule a free session with me, and we can talk about, you know, I can help you. It's called a breakthrough session. So we look at where you might be stuck, and where and what you want, and the gap between those two, and everyone usually gets a lot of clarity from those sessions. I give you a little takeaway for how, you know, one thing I think that could help you And of course, if you, both of us, feel like it's a good fit to move forward, then we can talk about that on the session. So don't be shy and feel free to sign up for one of those. And please leave a comment or a question here, and I will be happy to come back and connect with you further around this issue. Thanks for being here. Have a lovely day or evening whenever you're watching. Bye-bye for now.